would like to, before we get to the scripture that I have, give us a couple definitions. Pilgrim. One, on a spiritual journey. It always references that pilgrimage is there. It's related to religion or some sort of faith. And it's something that people are pursuing. And the other definition is confidence. Now, you can only find a definition that relates to human beings, but I'll give that a feeling of trust in one's power. And as I thought about that, the pilgrim's confidence is in the power of God. The scripture that I would like to share with us this morning is found in Hebrews, the 13th chapter and the 14th verse. Hebrews 13, verse 14. It says, "For here have we no continuing city, but we seek one to come." And I want us to consider this in reference to, the writer mentions this, the way things were in Jerusalem after Jesus had come to the earth, died on the cross, rose again, went back to the Father, and he had already told the people in Jerusalem what was going to happen to that city. And so the writer says there, here is an eloquent and forcible allusion to the approaching destruction of Jerusalem. The Jerusalem that was below was about to be burnt with fire and erased to the ground. The Jerusalem that is or was from above was that alone which could be considered permanent. And so as I meditated upon this thought, my mind went to the various places that we've traveled over the years. And oftentimes you're on the highway and you're driving. Maybe you get on the little 2-lane roads and you'll see a sign for a city. And as you drive through that city, you see a whole lot of empty, abandoned, almost buildings that need to be demolished. They don't have a roof, don't have windows, nobody's living there. And when you think about that, it's like, how long ago were there people living in those places? Had maybe a bustling city. I've been in other places where, even cities that I used to live in, where things are different. They're not as big as they used to be. Not as many people there. And so as we consider this scripture, we have no continuing city. If we look at the world in which we live, how many places did people live and dwell across the entire world that are now places of destruction, places of desolation, places where nobody lives? You look over there in Israel and what's taking place in Lebanon, in those places where nobody lives there. All you see is rubble and destruction. And as time goes on, you and I may see that in some of these cities around here. We could even say that for the earth itself. We look at the earth and you say, well, one time this used to be nice, now it's not. Now, this used to be this, now it's not. People done messed this up. Nobody lives here, nobody lives there. I believe they did some sort of scientific study, and so they put this thing in a model, and they had a city that was uninhabited. And they want to know how long it would take for all the vegetation to grow over everything and make it disappear. And it wasn't very long. So we have no continuing city. But we seek one to come. You and I are pilgrims in this life. And as we consider our state as a pilgrim, that means that my focus is on spiritual things, on spiritual growth, my spiritual journey, and it's not so much focused on this world. We're going to be disappointed if our focus is in this world. Look at all the things that are going wrong in people's lives across the entire world. In this world in which we live right now, things you used to be able to count on, you can't count on them no more. And we're living in that state right now. Sometimes I wonder how long the education system's going to last before it turns into something else. Because it seems like it's not doing much good right now. So many students just passing through there. And some of them come out and they can't even hardly read. They can't add and do math. Yesterday I was in a place and there was a little boy and I bought some things and he had the little stand there and I guess it was his mother was there beside him and I gave him $20 for what I bought and he's standing there and he's trying to figure what he's supposed to give me back. And he got it right. And I said, that's good. You're learning. He's getting something. He knows how to give change back to a person. You ever see people that you go places and they look at the register, they look at what you give them, they look at the register, and they say, well, how much of? And then I've had experiences where they didn't give me too much back. And I'm looking at it wondering, the register tells you exactly what to give, and you still give me the wrong change. And I say, you gave me too much. Put this back in the register. But that's the kind of world we live in. It's not going to be here long. The way things are, if God don't come back soon, human beings will destroy the earth in which we live by the way they do. Those that want to fight, I got to be at war with this one or that one. Look at what they're doing to the place that people lived in. They don't even have a home anymore. They're put off in some other country. And you imagine the despair, the disruption that they have gone through in their life because somebody dropped a bomb on their city. And this is what the world we live in. But you know, we have something far greater. We have the ability to look for a city that is to come. Now, I want us to consider this. I thought about this in Psalms, the 23rd chapter. Each one of us in our spiritual walk are going to experience various things. Things that are good, sometimes some things we say that may be bad. It's a bad experience. Man, I hope I never have to experience that again. But you look at this particular passage here. I'm going to read the whole 23rd Psalm. This is one of people's favorite scriptures, the 23rd Psalm. And it gives them spiritual inspiration in their life from time to time. He said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Do you know there's some people can't lay down in green pastures, can't be led beside the still waters, because all they're around is rubble and destruction. And when you consider, that's in a literal example, when you consider them spiritually, there are some in rubble and destruction. But David had found a place in the Lord that was green, and the waters were still. To me, that represents a place that I want to be. I want to pull up my little folding lawn chair and sit down by the still waters and enjoy that green pasture. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I skipped one. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Now you and I can look at the world in which we live and we can see we are constantly in danger. Physically in danger everywhere we go. You got people running red lights. You go to other countries, there's people being kidnapped and killed for no reason. Look in the news. It don't take you long to get to some situation that has occurred where somebody's life was affected. He said, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. One thing that we can see from the scriptures, in David's experience, he had all kinds of things that he dealt with. He was popular. He was cast out. He had his children his son trying to kill him. He had Saul trying to kill him. He had all these things going on in life. But some way through it all, he found his peace in God. I believe that David was probably looking around saying, man, why can't I'm the king of this country. Why can't I make things just to be just so? And I imagine he had those times when he was thinking, man, what is it going to be one day when I go see my Lord? I don't have a continuing city here. So what do I have to do? I got to look at what's coming. And you and I, as we go through life, sometimes that's what we just got to do. You get so much bad news around you that the only way that you can really get some peace is to think about what's coming. Well, when God comes back, all this going to be over. There ain't going to be no wars. There ain't going to be no famine. There won't be no sickness either. And as we go through life, sometimes that's what we got to do. Where's my confidence? My confidence in knowing that God's promises are sure and what he has planned for me, I can look forward to it. That's the city that I know ain't going to have no issues. There ain't going to be no fussing and fighting. There ain't going to be no treaties that get broken. There ain't going to be no broken homes, no broken families. It's going to be a beautiful place. And that is our confidence. I'd like to get Hebrews 11 chapter. Going to look at a few scriptures in this book. Several verses in Hebrews, the 11th chapter. We're going to look at some folks that we are all familiar with. We know their story. It's been recorded. We can go right to Genesis and read about them. We can go to the other Old Testament books and read about them. And let's read about them a little bit as the apostle was summarizing their life. Hebrews, the 11th chapter, going to read verses 8 through 10. Hebrews 11, 8 through 10. It says this. By faith, Abraham. Now, is there anyone here that don't know who Abraham was? We all are familiar with who Abraham was. He was a man. He lived like you and I, dwelled in a tent out in the middle of nowhere. He had a wife. But for some reason, God withheld children from them. And so he got up in age. And God said, I'm going to give you a promise. I'm going to give you a son. Didn't it defy the logics of nature to have a child at that age? But God had made the promise to him. So let's read about it here. By Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place, he had to leave those he was familiar with, which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out. It said, not knowing whither he went. Now, how hard is it to just get up and go somewhere? Most people, they got a good plan, right? Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm going to move to this city over here. Well, how am I going to live in this city? What kind of work am I going to have? What kind of place am I going to live in? It said he didn't know. He probably knew he was going to live in his tent because he packed it up. We're going to live in the tent, but I don't know where we going or what we doing. But Abraham, it said he obeyed. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. But listen to this. That wasn't his aim and goal. He was looking for something else. It said, for he looked for a city who hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Yeah, I'm dwelling over here in this place that I'm not familiar with. There are strangers all around me. But this is what I know, that God is preparing something for me. He was looking for a city. I know that God's going to do something for me. And I can't help but wonder if he was thinking about where I'm going to be when I pass from this life. Because I know I can count on that. I may not be able to count on this area here where I'm living with all these strangers. Do you not know that the place he used to live is full of war and destruction now? However many years it's been since Abraham has been there, you can go to that place and I guarantee you it don't look nothing like it looked when he was there. I wonder how many broken down buildings are in those places. No windows, no roof, rubble in the streets. Things that need to be gotten rid of. If you picture the children now, they're probably playing in that rubble, hopping over the stones, the broken down cars, everything that's been bombed, all the rubble there. But Abraham was looking for something far greater. Now I want to drop down to the 13th verse and read through the 16th. Now these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. You know that Abraham and them passed before the promise of Christ ever came? I believe they knew that that's what his lineage was all about, to bring a way back to God, but they died before that. And were persuaded of them and embraced them and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Well, the Lord didn't allow me to be able to see the promise of his salvation coming to the earth. But I believe Abraham was all right, wasn't he? How do we know that Abraham was all right? Because when the rich man died, it said he lifted up his eyes and the beggar was in Abraham's bosom. So that tells us Abraham made it out all right in his life, even though he didn't live up to the time when the promise came. And we have that in the scripture. He's in Abraham's bosom. That means Abraham was pretty well off, wasn't he? For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. What country are we seeking? Are we so entrenched in this earth that every one of our ties is stuck into it, someplace in this earth? If that's the case, we're going to become real disappointed after a while. Because man has a tendency to destroy everything he makes. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. Listen, they wasn't looking back. There's a lot of people looking back. Well, it was better when I was in this place. It was better when I was in that place. We are to look back. We are to look for that country. Yes, it might get difficult in life. Some things gonna get real hard. But we are not to look back. God has given us something far greater that we can look forward to. Even though I go through some hardship, some difficulty, I get uncomfortable in it, but what I can do is look to my country. It ain't gonna always be like that. Yes, you may have to endure some hard times for a season, but it ain't gonna always be like that. But now they desire a better country. That is a heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. Now you think about all these patriarchs that came before us, that received the blessings of God. You know what they're doing right now? You know, we look at, well, they're dead. Yeah, if you look at it from the earthly perspective, yes, they're dead. But if you look at it from the spiritual perspective, they've been doing real good for the last however many thousand years. Because where are they? They're not in hell. They're in a country. They're in a place that's prepared for those that are waiting for God to come back. Waiting for the fullness of time to take place. They're doing pretty good. I don't believe Abraham had a headache yesterday. Matter of fact, they don't even count the days no more. Nobody had a cold. Nobody was aging. And all you know what they're waiting on? They're waiting for the promise to be fulfilled for all of us that are still coming on. And so you and I have to look at it from this perspective. Number one, they had a spiritual vision. When you have a spiritual vision, you don't let your earthly vision take over it. They never turned back, and they longed for a better land. This is our confidence. This is the confidence of a pilgrim. You think about a pilgrim in the natural sense. Let's go back to Christopher Columbus. They all got on a boat, didn't they? Started out, we're going to head east. Did they have GPS? Did they have a drone to fly above them to show them the way? No, they got in the boat and they started sailing. Did they know how long it was going to be in the boat? They didn't even know that. Did some of them get sick? Yes, they did. Didn't realize how long the journey is. Oh, I don't got enough fruit, so now I have a deficiency, and now I got illness. But you know, they kept sailing. You notice they didn't say, oh, we're going to turn around and go back. This ain't working. If you done traveled this far, why not keep going? And that's what being a pilgrim is all about. I believe they probably had some storms. They probably had some high seas and wondered, are we going to drown? Because I sure can't swim all the way back. I believe they wondered, well, we don't have quite enough food. We got to cut down what we eat. So we got to ration it out so we can try to prolong our food for the days because we don't know. But I believe they had their eyes set, looking east, saying, somewhere over there is some land that we can go to and that we can establish a life. Now, if they were willing to do that, what are you and I willing to do as pilgrims and strangers in this life? I don't know how long it's going to be before I get to go to the country. But I know this, I'm not going to turn back because there's nothing back there that's worth turning back to. If I can see in the scriptures that Abraham and all them are in such a good place, what do you think is going to be there for me? What is going to be there for you? Everything you ever wanted is going to be there. It will make this world look minuscule compared to what God has prepared. The scripture says, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard what God hath prepared for those. I want to give you one more scripture. And I want you to think about this. Anytime you get discouraged, anytime the devil tries to bring some doubt your way, you think about this. Revelations, the 21st chapter, I'm going to read verse 1 through 7. And I saw, who we talking about? We talking about John the Revelator. Do you understand that John the Revelator was put on an island in the Mediterranean Sea? All by himself. They didn't care if he had somebody there to be a friend or a companion. Probably didn't even give him the stuff he needed to live there. Their whole intention was to be stuck on that island and to die over there because they couldn't kill him. But you know, God allowed that to take place. He allowed it to take place so that you and I can understand what he has done for us. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. Picture this, John the Revelator on the island. What is he surrounded by? He's surrounded by water. All the way around, as far as he could see, is water. And he said, the new heaven and earth came down, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them. They shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. This is what we are experiencing. In our salvation, we are experiencing God dwelling within us, being right there with us, to talk to us, to encourage us, to help us along the pathway of life. God shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes. There shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, write these words are true and faithful. Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, it is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. You and I, this is our experience. But that's not all. He said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Now you know how you go in Genesis, the first chapter? It said, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And we can read through the daily activity of God as he created this earth that we live on right now. Do you know that he's already created the new heaven and earth for us? We can't see it. But if God created this one, and it was beautiful. You know, man's messed some things up. But in general, the earth is a beautiful place. Now, can you imagine what he has created? A new heaven and a new earth. I believe it far exceeds anything that we have experienced on this earth now. There's a lot of people, they are tied to this world. They got their anchor firmly grounded in this earth. You think about the people that, they call them heat tree huggers. Gotta plant a tree. Gotta plant a tree here, plant a tree there. Oh, if we harvest one, we need to put another one in its place. They are rooted in this earth. And we've already talked about before what's going to happen in this earth. Now, if God, who took 6 days to create it, decides he's going to destroy it, what do you think the new heaven and earth is like? Far exceeds this one. And you know what's the good thing about it? The devil ain't going to be there. None of his imps going to be there. And none of the unrighteous going to be there either. It's only going to be there for those who are righteous and those pilgrims that are traveling this spiritual journey to get there. It'll be the greatest thing we ever had. And when you and I are there, everything in this earth going to be a distant memory. Well, I remember how long... Ain't nobody else sitting up there talking about, I remember how long it took to get from Ohio to California. All the miles we used to drive. Or some even go back even farther. You remember how long we walked to get to church. That ain't going to be a thought in their mind. They're too busy enjoying what God has created. This is our confidence. And anytime the enemy comes against it, we see a lot. It makes us sad to see what mankind is doing in the earth. All the warring and the fighting and all these things, just eating up all the resources. There ain't going to be no mining in the new heaven and the new earth. There ain't going to be no wars in the new heaven and the new earth. Everybody going to get along. Imagine that. Peace everywhere. You might pinch yourself, see if it's real, but you don't even feel pain. So that don't work. But it's going to be worth it. This is our confidence. You and I, we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come. Anytime you get discouraged along the pathway of life, think about your city. The new heaven and the earth. John was on there on the island. I could picture him sitting there, maybe sitting on a rock. Ain't nobody around. And he's just looking up. And God shows him this. And he tells him, right. How do you ever consider this? How do you have pen and paper? What do you write on? I don't know what it was, but it got to us. We have the account. So he wrote it somewhere. And you and I, he already saw what God has prepared for us. And anytime I don't know. You know, the people say, oh, there's no God. Oh, there ain't no heaven or hell. Pick up the book and read. Because John was sitting there all by himself and he saw it. And he wrote